the Untold Radio Network family of shows and join in on the conversation by using super stickers and super chats on YouTube. Got a question you want answered? Ask it live via a super chat and get real-time responses from our show's knowledgeable hosts and guests. Help keep the Untold Radio Network shows running strong. We need your support. Send your super chats and stickers now.
Welcome. Tonight we have a fantastic episode for you. We're talking about the classic Doug Hajicek documentary, Sasquatch, Legend Meets Science. But before Jason and I dig into that film, we have a very special guest. Doug Hajicek himself is joining us to talk about his upcoming project, which is the sequel, so Legend Meets Science 2, and how you can get involved and be a part of that project and help it get made. So we'll be looking at all of that and more tonight on Mysterious Library.
Welcome, librarians of the weird. It's another episode of Mysterious Library. Dean, me, we're going to talk Sasquatch Legend Meets Science. I'm excited for this one a lot. And I could go on for a while, but I got to bring up Doug Hajicek. He's not only the guy behind Sasquatch Legend Meets Science, but he's the guy behind this whole channel. Why we're all here talking right now. It's Mr. Doug Hajicek. And let me go ahead and bring him back up. Hey.
Hey, Jason and Dean, how are you guys doing?
Good to have you on, Doug.
Well, better now that you're here.
Pardon?
Better now that you're here.
Oh,
it's a surprise. We've
Yeah.
only ever had one other guest on Mysterious Library, so it's reserved for the best of the best, Doug.
well, then I'm special tonight.
That's true. You're always special.
You're special every night, Doug.
Oh, gee, thanks.
I
Thanks.
love Legend Meets Science, by the way. I know we're more going to be talking about the next one, but I don't know if I'd seen it way back in the day, but it was such a treat. It reminded me of MonsterQuest, but in some ways it was so much more thorough in the analysis. Not that MonsterQuest wasn't, but it seemed really to focus in on the analysis, which was
Yeah.
fantastic. One of the best Bigfoot documentaries I've ever seen, hands down.
Yeah, we're going to try to, stay with that tradition for Legend Meets Science too. So if people are expecting a ton of, expedition stuff, there'll still be more science and conclusions than anything. And I really think at the end of this new doc, people will feel like they really got their desire for some answers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you talk about some of those things that I know when on the Kickstarter page, which we'll talk about in a minute, and people should go and look at, you talk about some of those things that you have planned. Can you talk a little bit about some of them now?
Sure, I can. Sure, absolutely. The categories are about 24, but the subcategories are where it gets really interesting. For instance, we're going to look at footprints and we're going to show the dermal ridges like they've never been seen. analyze like they've never been seen, take it to the new level. But then we're going to go into a sub-microscopic level and look at the sweat pores that have been cast in those castings.
Wow.
Nobody's ever talked about.
Oh, wow.
Grover Krantz was the only one that I'm aware of that even brought it up.
Yeah.
Were
No,
the sweat pores.
Yeah, I can't remember anyone talking about that outside of Grover Krantz.
No. So we're hoping to show, we will show them, but we're going to be looking for patterns in these sweat pores. How are they different from human? How are they different from gorillas? How are they different?
Oh, wow.
And of course, something like that then will segue us into the sebum that comes out of those pores. And
Yes.
we'll go deep into that. What is the chemical makeup of the sebum? How is it different than humans? How is it different than gorillas, chimps, orangutans? Because that work has already been done, which is cool. All I've got to do is do the Sasquatch and confirm it. We've got enough samples where it won't just be one sample of sebum. We have enough samples to where we can go, oh, look at this. It comes out the same every time. And it's totally different than any of the other primates. And here's how you can go collect more for your own scientific study, which really now when you look at the latent details, you look at the sweat pores, then you look at the makeup, the chemical makeup of the sebum, and then you look at the DNA that we'll be able to extract out of the sebum, which will be nuclear DNA. And, with luck, we'll have enough to get the entire sequence. So,
out of curiosity,
yeah,
because I know the last time we talked about this on air, it was more, this is what we're going to do. It kind of sounds like you're spilling the beans that you've done some of this testing already.
I'm not saying.
You're not saying? Okay. I just saying.
I'm not saying anything, Jason.
I wouldn't imagine that you would.
No. But I do know this. This is just one example of evidence that the skeptics say we have none of. And this one example is really 3D. I mean, it's the whole enchilada. It's everything. You cannot fake chemicals.
Yeah.
And especially when we tell the scientists, here's how you can get your own samples within inside of 2 or 3 weeks. It becomes more powerful, and we're really hoping to raise the bar. But we're going to be looking at all sorts of new, brand new categories. We're going to find out what's in that smell.
Oh yeah, the
actually captured the smell, and we have it captured.
Wow. How do you capture it? Just out of curiosity.
A little bit of luck, but you get one of these creatures to handle absorbent plastic.
Huh.
Oh.
But if it's exactly like the smell, if you've ever smelt it, the smell, and it's in a very active area. All we can do at that point is test it. Yeah, there's no way we're going to know for sure is this a Bigfoot, but what are the chemicals? Then I put a name to it called, a chemical name to it. A moniker, I call it putrescine.
Love it.
I want to know what is in this putrescine. It may even reveal how is it being manufactured in their bodies. Is it glandular? Is this something that is in their sweat? Is it in their sebum? Where is it coming from? What's really interesting when you talk to like a zoologist and things that I've talked about have connected dots for them. A zoologist, think about something that I've observed in Sasquatch and thousands of people have, connects a dot with a real zoologist who's taking care of gorillas. And that was like in the sebum. We're talking about this white sebum. Yeah. And one day I had this zoologist come to me who takes care of gorillas and go, gee, I need to talk to you about something. He's like, well, one day all these male gorillas came out with this white bubbling substance that was coming out of under their armpits. That it was literally making bubbles, like big, like elastic type bubbles. And then they were smearing it all over the glass. And it was white, just like you talked about. And we couldn't get it off. And of course, that was like ding, 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 ding for not only them or for him, but also for me. Because that's exactly one of the qualities. You cannot get this stuff off. Once it gets on glass, I mean, it's damn near permanent.
Yeah, actually, I've got some pictures I need to send you from one of Texas' last expeditions. They had a couple touching the car or the truck and taking stuff out. It's some really, really interesting photographs. But yeah, it's a lot of us have seen this material for years, as far as the white hand prints. And you were the first one to say, well, why don't we look into whether or not this stuff can be tested? Is it useful? Is it something that's viable? Because it will tell you so much. We now know that we can learn from it. Where, throughout history, most people, you find that there's always something that's in most literature of anything, where even if it's chemicals, where it's like, hey, we found this, but we don't know what to do with it. And so it just gets buried. And it's like, you had an answer 30, 40 years earlier. This is one of those things where this has been around.
Yeah. Well, it's been ignored other than photographed. It's been very well documented through photographs. And I'd love to see the photographs that you speak of, Jason. Yeah,
I'm going to have to get them. He sent them to me, but I want a clearer version to send over to you. But real quick, Patricia, thank you. Thank you for your $5 super sticker. We really appreciate that. We really do. We're actually going to, at the end of the episode, we're going to show the full trailer for the Kickstarter.
Sure.
Again, I'm a backer. This is going to be history. What's going to happen with Sasquatch Legend Meets Science 2 is it's going to create history. It's going to redefine what's going to happen, I think, in this industry, or it's not really an industry, but in this field.
No, I think it will too. I think it's ripe for everything right now, Jason and Dean. I mean, think about Zoobook, Project Zoobook, that Amy started, all the scientists that have joined anonymously, and the fact the Wall Street Journal did this huge article on it. And I'm thinking, well, there's no reason they wouldn't do an article on any results we get.
I would
it's kind of how the whole UAP thing broke open.
Yeah.
So can we get the press to maybe take a serious look at this whole thing? That would be big. If we can get another bunch of double the amount of scientists involved, that would be huge. And just, take it as a starting point for Legend Meets Science 3 or for other scientists just to continue on. The last one is still valid, which is my only comment about it. I won't say a whole lot about it. Any insider information, the only insider information I can give you is it was an opportunity for me and Matt Moneymaker to get the information out. That was my goal for the Legend Meets Science 1. And I will vouch, I lost probably $160,000 on that project.
Gosh.
Invested of my own money into it, so it wasn't like some big money maker. And I think probably real recently, like in the last year or two, we may have broke even.
Oh, wow.
So it's get rich quick, this stuff.
Only took 10, 15 years?
Oh, yeah, it's been 23.
Oh, wow. That's right.
I started working actually on it right about 1999.
Oh,
on
wow.
the content for it. So, it was about 99. Then we got the okay from Discovery Channel. Of course, you get a certain amount of time to do it.
Yeah.
But the whole story behind that doc was for television, for Discovery Channel. And you remember the Hieronymus thing, Dean and Jay?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You remember that? Well, that came right before my doc was going to air. And I got a call from Discovery Channel, another insider. Got a call. I'm in a hotel room, and I was doing a lot of media tours because that actually got a lot of media attention. I was doing interviews all over the world. I was doing big shows like the Man Cow show out of Chicago, the big AM and FM radio stations, and actually had gotten interviewed, over in England several times on the dock. But I remember that day I got a discovery from Discovery. I got a call from Discovery, and they said, yeah, it's too bad we can't run your doc now. And I'm like, what? Well, that guy came forward and said he was behind the whole mystery. And I'm like, oh my God, John, let me take a few minutes and educate you.
Yeah.
And I did. And of course, he's like, oh, God, I had no idea. So here was the executive producer who really wasn't up to speed because he hadn't seen the doc yet. So I brought him up to speed, and he was like, and then, of course, they ran it. And Discovery ran it for, God, almost 14 years, believe it or not.
Wow.
Oh, trust me, it came across my television on more than one occasion.
Yeah, so it ran a long time. But with that, I'll get out of your guys' hair and let you do what you got to do.
Such as it is.
Thank you for coming on. It was such a joy to have you with us, Doug.
No, it was great to be invited on, and hopefully that just gives your conversation a tiny boost.
Oh, I'm sure it already has.
Thanks, guys. Good luck tonight.
Thanks, Doug.
Okay,
appreciate
bye.
you.
Yep, bye.
So again, I don't think it takes too much to say that was Doug Hajicek. Again, Legend Meets Science 1, which is what we're talking about tonight. But again, we're going to run the Kickstarter at the full Kickstarter at the end. But Legend Meets Science 2, the Kickstarter's live. We got 7 days left. This is going to make history. You are going to be a part of history when this is done. And
I think it's worth saying, because I've said it before on the show, but I'll say it again to put it into context as well. Doug Hajicek's the man who invented the camera and filmed the first giant undersea squid. So if anybody out there has the potential to make a television documentary about real evidence which leads to the discovery of Sasquatch, if there is such a physical being, and we'll get to that as well, it's Doug Hajicek. Like, if you want to bet on a pony in this race to get there, to get the results that everybody wants, bet on Doug Hajicek. And here's your chance to literally put your money where your mouth is if you're a Bigfoot believer.
Precisely. It's for a lot of people, like, where's the people doing the work? Where's the people doing? There's the people doing the work. There's Doug. He's doing the work. So, like Dean said, put your money where your mouth is. Let's get this thing funded so we can do this. Let's change the perspective on this conversation and really move it forward. With that note, now that he's gone, we can be honest about the Legend Meets Science 1. I kind of want to get through some of the aesthetic and layout things first, because the conversation Dean and I are going to have very quickly is, I think, going to be a lot more interesting because of his view on cryptids in general, as well as mine. If you were a fan of MonsterQuest, everything about this is immediately obvious, right? It's the same narrator from MonsterQuest. The format is basically the same. It feels like an episode of MonsterQuest, but to Dean's point, more focused on the evidence and the scientific conclusions you can take from it.
Yeah, it's Stacy Keach is the narrator, right? The great actor who played Mike Hammer, which I was such a fan of as well as a kid.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, Stacy Keach is the narrator.
Yeah, he was Mike Hammer. Oh, wow. I forgot about that entirely.
So to hear Mike Hammer narrate as well. And he's got such a great voice. And it is, like I said, it does remind me of MonsterQuest. I'm a massive fan of MonsterQuest. It's the reason I know Doug now, is because I reached out to him because I wanted to talk to him, I think, back on the old show when I did Talking Weird and I wasn't on the Untold Radio Network. We watch MonsterQuest still at least on a weekly basis here in my house. My daughter loves it. She asks to watch MonsterQuest all the time. And to see another film produced, which again, it's more detailed. It gets more, the last documentary probably got more into some of the scientific minutiae, which is necessary if you're taking this stuff, serious at that level. But to see anything else produced by Doug is just a dream for me, being the fanboy of MonsterQuest that I am.
Yeah. No, it has that love and that care and that feel to it of, let's walk you through the story. Let's give it to you in consumable bite-sized pieces for people who may not be as involved in this material. And it's like, let's give it to you, and then let's give you the reveal, right? And there's a lot of care taken into presenting the people who are involved and making certain you understand what they're saying, not necessarily just what Doug would maybe want. Like, Doug's really good about giving you what the person actually thinks versus trying to make them say something that they're not saying. There's that one, the audio technician. I had everyone's name written down, and it disappeared from my computer just as I logged in. Because you know how bad I am with names.
The audio guy.
The audio and he points out, it's like, look, we can rule out, something mechanical. We can rule out all the known animals, and says it looks very much like a primate, but he comes out and says, doesn't mean it can't be a human. Right. And if Doug was trying to manipulate the data, he would have left that part out, but he doesn't. He gives it to you. The whole, here's the story, here's his findings in their totality. And then you can make up your mind on it. That's the beauty of MonsterQuest. That's the beauty of Sasquatch Legend Meets Science, because that's what Doug wants you to have, is the whole story.
Yeah, I think MonsterQuest and this, you're right, was very good at debunking things that were hoaxes as well. Like this documentary, that Legend Meets Science, the first one, does a wonderful job at debunking something. I believe they call it in there the Memorial Day footage or something of this Bigfoot in the distance running along in front of a hill. And this documentary goes to the effort to go out there and get somebody who's a top level athlete, so they can say, well, this is somebody who should be able to run as fast as a Bigfoot. If any human can, probably he shouldn't even be able to run as fast as a Bigfoot. But they run it, they work out the path, they run this guy, and he runs it faster than the Bigfoot did. And they go, okay, this was probably just a man in a suit. And that's fantastic, because to debunk one piece of footage, and then when you look at other footage, it gives the documentary and the filmmakers far more credibility when they're dealing with other things. And MonsterQuest did it all the time as well. MonsterQuest would regularly roll stuff out which was, looked at as real evidence in the Fortean community, like the Michigan Dogman suit footage of that, supposedly old 1970s footage of a dog man attacking somebody, filming him on camera, running towards him. MonsterQuest was what debunked that. And that was, so that's why, whatever your position is, I think whether you are somebody, as we'll get to, who looks at this as perhaps more paraphysical, or whether you're somebody who thinks it's all just nonsense, or whether you're somebody who believes, at least you've got somebody who has genuine integrity at the helm of a film like this, who isn't just going to show a piece of, oh, this looks like great footage, let's push this to sell the film, when what he'll do is he'll go and look at it and get experts to analyze it and go, no, well, we can prove that was just probably a hoax. There's real value to that in this space, in the paranormal space, to get something which is gold footage and then turn around and say, no, that's a hoax. You don't see that almost ever in this space.
Yeah. How many spaces do you actually find that kind of honesty, to be honest? Again, this is why we're here. Truth be told, other people have approached us, right? I know Dean and I separately.
Yeah.
It's Doug Hajicek. That's why we're on this channel.
Absolutely.
I wouldn't be here if it wasn't Doug Hajicek, because I know he's trustworthy, and I know he's always gonna do the right thing. That I know, it's like, well, y'all are kissing really hard here, and that's true. However,
no, to be honest, it's the truth. It's not like we're not making big bucks here or anything. It wouldn't affect either of us financially if we didn't do this tomorrow. We are here because we honestly believe the person who runs this network is sincere and on the level and is a person of integrity. That's the same reason I love MonsterQuest, because I didn't feel like I was being BS'd. It's the same reason I let my daughter watch MonsterQuest, and we watch it together, because it's not just some paranormal junk show where I feel like she's getting the wool pulled over her eyes. It feels like a genuine, honest look at a phenomenon which is mysterious. And that's what I'm interested in.
No, precisely. We're here because it's Doug Hajicek. Not because he's a big name producer or anything like that. It's because we know he can be trusted. And in this field, in this area, it doesn't get better than that. This is someone who's literally spent the last 20 years showing how to do this whole thing right, how to go and be the best in this field and do it honestly. There's a lot of people out there who don't do it honestly, but he does. That's why we're here. Had he been anyone else, we both would have turned him down.
We
just
did.
Straight up.
We both got offers from other places. When we were both independent, we got offers from various places, and I wasn't interested, and I know you weren't either. And that is why we're here. Anyway, maybe we should talk more about the film.
Yes. So
because that's probably what people want to hear.
That's probably what people want to hear. So really, this is where I kind of wanted to go, because your sort of default for all cryptozoology, whereas mine's sort of a bit of both. I think there's both tangible things, but then there's also these metaphysical, paranormal things. Your sort of default, everything is sort of from a John Keel sort of perspective where it's all sort of this metaphysical material. What did you think about what was presented in the film as far as physical evidence? How did that affect you?
See, when there's physical trace evidence,
Mhm.
I think the assumption is that people who are Acheuleans or Valayians, or people who look at it perhaps more, I don't know, paraphysical, right? That they're going to all of a sudden be shocked, or they're going to go, well, I don't believe the trace evidence because I don't believe it's physical. But just because I look at it as something which isn't a flesh and blood animal that perpetually lives in the North American woods doesn't mean I can't see the evidence that there seems to be physical traces left behind by this being. So if there is some type of, handprint on a window like Doug was talking about before, or if there is some kind of footprint cast made, that doesn't surprise me. The history of the paranormal and the history of all things strange, even ghosts leave physical, traces. They scratch people, they knock things off shelves, they bang on walls, they throw stones. So there's a history in research into the supernatural of whatever it is, whatever these things are, being able to physically manifest their will or even their bodies within this reality. So if there's a cast of something, I don't automatically think it's a hoax. And by the way, because I suppose maybe it's my academic background, I don't know. I'm my first position, even before the paraphysical one, is to say it's a hoax. Not because I'm a debunker, but I'm like, I have to be certain that if somebody could have hoaxed that track, then chances are that track's probably hoax. But if all of a sudden it starts getting broken down, it's like, well, there's sweat pores in there. You go, well, would somebody really have been putting sweat pores into a fake wooden footprint back in the 1950s? Probably not. So that's where it does get my attention. It doesn't change my opinion of the perhaps stranger reality of these things than what's presented by a standard flesh and blood cryptozoologist. But that's where all the evidence gets my attention. When there's physical trace evidence which doesn't seem to be the result of a hoaxer, then I'm thinking, well, this is probably a genuine manifestation of something.
Yeah.
So those things, things like this Skookum cast, when if people are saying, well, this doesn't seem to be a real animal, or it seems to be something which isn't a known animal, then I'm like, well, possibly that's something which is manifested here. I mean, certainly Native American tradition about Sasquatch is far more spiritual than just that they're great giant apes who live in the woods. There's something more going on in much of Native American tradition, right?
Oh no, absolutely. And that's legitimately a question that I have as well. It's, well, hold on. If something is I like paraphysical, is a paraphysical creature, does that mean that it becomes simply a hard light hologram, or does it become a full biological creature that would have sweat pores and things like that? For me, the thing that I like about what the film does is go into the trackway and say, hey, they're not just tracks, they're tracks with dermal ridges. And these are dermal ridges that have been seen and observed for as far back as these tracks go. And the dermal ridges are very, very consistent across the board. Some of these are coming from 20 years apart, different parts of the country. And yet we're seeing the same sort of pattern that is unique to each species. Also evidence that the foot had taken damage, right? Steps on something, and that the dermal ridges sort of heal around it, right? It deforms those dermal ridges. That kind of detail, to your point, can't be faked. Now, does it mean that it's not necessarily something paraphysical? I don't know. I tend to go with Occam's razor on this, right? It's like, well, if it's getting scars and it's got dermal ridges, is that something that some paraphysical creature could simulate? I'm certain that it could. I tend to say, that's more indicative of a living flesh and blood creature. Again, always open, but it's that kind of detail that you get in this film, if you've never watched it, you need to see, where you have real experts in this material, not just, well, hey, he does he does some forensics on the side. No, this is a real forensics expert who's an expert in dermal ridges, who's also an expert in primate dermal ridges, looking at this material and saying it is distinct, it is there, and it is different from what we see in chimpanzees or orangutans or gorillas or humans. And it's certainly not something you'd find in a fake, much less fakes across decades and across the nation.
I know. I think I can see your point. I can see why somebody who looks at the evidence presented by Sasquatch researchers, where it often looks like there's something very physical behind these trace elements, or when the creature itself looks, for all intents and purposes, like either a great North American ape or a relict hominid or whatever the witness tends to describe it as. And I won't harp on it tonight because it's not what the show's about. I'm just not sure that any of that proves that it's a permanent resident of the North American woods. And I have lots of reasons, which I've reiterated hundreds of times on the show, particularly the fact that no hunters shot one, or the fact that they tend to appear in places unlike the Pacific Northwest, where there isn't a ridiculous amount of room for a sustainable population to survive. Those things make me question the reality of them being something which physically resides here all the time. I think back in the early days of Bigfoot research, like I think if you rewind back to the very early days, I think then it was a position I probably would have been much more comfortable to take if we were back in the 1960s having this conversation. I just think so much time has progressed and we have so many more reports of Bigfoot in areas which don't have the type of cover that the Pacific Northwest offers them, or the roaming regions of the Pacific Northwest. We have so many more stories about people shooting at them or shooting them that it just makes it more difficult. Anyway, I'll leave that alone. I enjoyed the biomechanical analysis of the Paddy footage in there as well.
That's
I'm not
literally
sure if
I'm
not sure if I thought you would. I probably shouldn't have jumped. I'll let you ask if you had a specific question about it before I keep talking about it.
Oh no, I was going to say that's my favorite part, right? Is the again, aside from the dermal ridges, is the biomechanical part, because they're taking actual footage and they're breaking it down and they're analyzing it. Unlike so many people say, well, it's just a guy in a suit. Okay, what's your evidence? It's a guy in a suit, right? They actually look and say, okay, well, let's really look at it. How is this leg actually moving? How is it walking? Now, again, so far as we can take it with the film that we have, but it's a structural analysis. Again, that's one of my favorite parts because it actually breaks down. Also, the fact that there is what appears to be soft tissue damage visible in the leg, where part of the muscle expands larger. Again, while it's walking, that's not a ripple in a suit. It is a thing growing and retracting because of potentially soft tissue damage. Again, it's these kinds of details that someone who's hoaxing something wouldn't be able to have come up with, much less thought about.
Yeah, I don't want to be disingenuous because I've gone on record a number of times saying that I believe Paddy's somebody in a suit, and I still think Paddy's somebody in a suit. I could be wrong. That's my gut instinct. And I have a number of reasons for that being my gut instinct. I'm somebody who's no expert in biomechanical movement. And certainly the documentary puts forward a fairly convincing case for the reason that it isn't a man in a suit. I do think that on the dawn of the Bigfoot phenomenon that we got a near, where admittedly shaky, but a very cool, 30 seconds of a Bigfoot wandering into the woods, and we have nothing comparable yet. Now people say, oh yeah, there's this piece of footage and that piece of footage. But the reality is Paddy's still the gold standard.
Yeah.
And there's more cameras than ever. There's more people out there than ever. They're seen everywhere. They're not just seen. You don't have to just go to Willow Creek to see a Bigfoot these days. Somebody saw one down the road here. I met a guy in my Walmart parking lot who was out squatching and had supposedly had encounters with them. So they're everywhere. So again, that's another thing that just makes the skeptic in me go, well, these two guys were out looking for Bigfoot to film Bigfoot, and they filmed Bigfoot. It just rings a bunch of skeptical bells. I'm happy to admit I could be totally wrong. There might be a real North American ape still. I could be wrong. That could have been one of my paraphysical, explanations, something manifested. I just still lean towards that footage not ringing true. But I know lots of people who totally disagree with me, and the film puts forward a very good case that it's genuine.
Yeah, I mean, and this is one again. This is I love the episodes where we get to fight. They are the
best ones.
They are. One of my issues has always been, I grew up. We were both fans of the Muppets. I think growing up, right? Jim Henson,
sure.
The Creature Shop. Yeah, I mean, and we've talked about this in the past, right? We've done books and documentaries that talk about how creating that particular suit at that time would have been, again, to assume it was a suit is just really kind of difficult to do, much less the details this gets into, right? To your point, it doesn't necessarily have to be, and again, a totally biological creature. If it's paraphysical, then maybe they just caught it moving that way. I do want to address that one thing you said. There was like, well, they went out to look for it and they found it. The Borneo rhino. Dude went out to look for it. Other people had looked for it, couldn't find it. Dude went out, looked for it, and he found it. Does that mean that he faked the 30 seconds of footage? Because there's only that 30 seconds of footage of a Borneo rhino. Rhino's not the smartest creature on the planet, right? We know where they live. We know how they live. We know what they do. This one dude was able to get like 15 seconds of footage of this thing that no one had taken a photograph of in 100 years. So I get you're saying, well, hey, it's at the very beginning of this and this happens. But people go out to look for endangered or hard to find creatures all the time, and they find them. Who would be better set to get good footage of something than someone who went out looking for something?
I'm not denying the fact that they were out looking, and they clearly were, and that you have to go and look to get something. I don't disagree with that. I don't know enough about the Borneo rhino to know where it stands within zoological classifications, but I suspect there's more evidence of the Borneo rhino than 15 seconds of footage. And I suspect there's more than just a couple of casts or hundreds of casts of Borneo rhino footprints, some of which are real and some of which are fake. So I suspect that sits a little more comfortably within standard zoological interpretations than the Sasquatch. I'm somebody too who thinks extraordinary claims do need extraordinary proof, and that's a very trite thing. It's a throwaway thing,
right? But
I do think if we're talking about there being a physical North American man ape or North American ape or relict hominid, whatever your camp is, whatever you think the thing is, I do think that there needs to be considerable proof. And of course, that's the whole purpose of both Sasquatch Legend Meets Science 1 and even more so Sasquatch Legend Meets Science 2. And again, I believe if there is a North American ape out there, I fully believe nobody in the documentary or scientific space is more capable of proving that to me than Doug Hajicek. So that's why I'm all for this film. I want to be honest with you. I would love there to be a genuine hairy hominid in the woods of North America. I would love it. It's just that I think that it comes and goes, and it's more complicated than we're led to believe. That's all.
I'm going to harp on this for the next 20 minutes because it's so much fun. Why do I come here every week just to pick on you? It's one of the things I love. No, and I think, again, because and everyone should know my perspective at this point, which is I think it's a bit of both. I think there's a lot of what people encounter isn't actually Bigfoot. It isn't a biological creature. I think that's probably actually a majority of what people are running across. Okay, so Nancy, that depends.
So Nancy asks, just for the audio listeners rather than our viewers, Nancy Malcolm asks, has anyone successfully summoned a cryptid?
Again, it depends on what your definition of a cryptid is. Because I would suggest there's quite a few things that are called cryptids. I wouldn't put them as a cryptozoological creature because, from my viewpoint, cryptozoological creatures are always they're biological entities, like you are, like my dog, your cat. Well, cats are iffy, but cows. But then there are creatures that are clearly just straight up not naturally existing biological entities that do get summoned, and that which leads to a lot of this confusion, a lot of this questions. I mean, heck, I know, again, this is where Doug and I do agree. I've got accounts of people seeing gargoyles and not just dog men, but like goat men inside of cities. And these aren't just, these aren't just lunatics or drug. These were sober people who are of good repute who are like, no, it's scary. I won't go back there because I saw XYZ.
I think that regarding the summoning, of course, people often leave offerings for Bigfoot, food and apples and, the like. And sometimes the Bigfoot will leave them, I don't know, whatever they leave, a rock or a pine cone or something.
Mm-hmm.
But that's very much part of fairy tradition as well. And I think that's something that Joshua Cutchin and Timothy Renner talk about in Where the Footprints End, the idea that you can leave things for the Bigfoot. And if they don't talk about it there, somebody's talked about it somewhere. This isn't something I've invented. There is a clear comparison between the ideas of leaving things for other entities, which are considered more paranormal, and leaving things for Bigfoot. And often the response and the relationship becomes the same. So to answer your question, Nancy, if you consider Bigfoot a cryptid, as I think most people do, you might be able to summon it as easily as leaving apples for it in your backyard.
There you go.
Just quickly, this is a funny story. I have a very good friend. I won't say his name in...
Wait, you have friends?
Only one or two, not many. I don't know if I can count you. You're so mean to me, Jason. I have a friend in the film industry. In fact, he might have even said on a Talking Weird, but I don't want to say if he didn't say it because he might still do it. He knew somebody in the suburbs of Cleveland who supposedly, he wanted to make a documentary about this guy. Supposedly, he would leave offerings for Bigfoot, and Bigfoot would come and take the offerings and come into his house and do all kinds of things. And when I say the suburbs of Cleveland, it was out of suburbs. So there's some little woody area around, but I'm telling you right now, there's no sustainable population of Sasquatch in that area. I've been there myself. Interestingly, I talked to other people in that area who had also had Sasquatch sightings. So those type of stories, leaving apples for Bigfoot in kind of the outer suburbs of a major city, the Bigfoot coming into your house, other people I knew in the area seeing Bigfoot, that again is the things which makes me lead to paraphysical, because I don't want to dismiss the people who are telling me these stories. I don't want to say you're lying or you're delusional or you're hoaxing me. I tend to think some of these people are telling me the genuine truth. But then it becomes very difficult to say, well, that creature, which I might be able to have imagined back in the 1960s living in the Pacific Northwest undisturbed, that same type of entity is somehow living in the suburbs of Cleveland.
Yeah. No, and that's... So actually, I want to put up Patricia Younger's question real quick. I'm going to read that off because I think it ties directly into what she's saying here. She asks, would a camera such as used by Patterson, meaning an analog film camera without batteries, be a better option to capture Sasquatch since there seems to be difficulties with digital?
Good question.
And I think there's two answers. The first one is yes, because film is always going to be crisper. It's going to be cleaner. And they actually had real lenses on it versus most people. To Dean's point, there's more cameras. Yes, but they're all these stupid things, which aren't really cameras. They're meant for selfies. They're meant for big things like landscapes. Fine detail requires either film. It requires film and it requires actual lenses. I've got a lot of friends who are photographers, and for something 20, 30 feet away, like they film and they, birds and animals, they have these massive lenses, and you have people walking around with handy cams, and it's 100 yards out. You're not going to get any good images with that. So yeah. However, I think this is where it ties into Dean's point about the paraphysical aspect of it. There's a lot of oddities around digital equipment and paranormal, paraphysical entities. Have been for a long time, documented for a long time, which is kind of one on Dean's list over here, right? I'll say it. It's a mark on Dean's list because it's, if you're having all of these, I've had them. Most everyone I know who's a researcher has had these issues where you put up a camera, everything's working until you get this weird point. Then either you get 1,000 photographs of nothing or just a white screen, and then everything's normal after that, and there's a footprint right in front of it, right? Or just any number of anomalous things happening with camera traps or normal cameras. So that's another problem with the digital, is that it can be interfered with, which last time I checked, I don't remember any chimpanzees affecting digital cameras last time I was at the zoo.
You're right, though. There's a long tradition now, well, not long, because we've only had electronics and alone
Mhm.
for 100 years or so, and certainly digital only for 10 or 20. But certainly in the ghost hunting community, you hear all the time, "Oh, the batteries got drained. Oh, there was a glitch." It is a fairly standard thing to hear. So that was an insightful question from Patricia, I think.
Yes. And I would expect nothing less from our audience. Our audience is definitely among the best on the internet, period. End of
Very
story.
true. Yeah, no, I love our audience. Very grateful. Thank you, everybody, contributing in the chat. It's always a healthy chat. There's always people with real insight and interesting questions in there.
Yeah. CF has a great question. It says, makes sense to try, but who can get real film now? You can special order it, and you can still have it developed. You can still get it. It is still available. You just can't run to the. Do you remember? Did you have a Fox's?
No,
in
but we
Australia?
used to get our film because my brother and I, when we were kids, had
Mhm.
Super 8, so we were always shooting Super 8 stuff.
Mhm.
Our pharmacist is where you would go, or a
Yeah.
chemist, whatever you call it. Here, you'd go there and you drop it off. They'd have like a box.
Mhm.
They'd put the Kodak film in. They'd ship it off to the lab, and it wouldn't even be that long a turnaround. Like you get it back within a week or so. The problem is, unlike digital now, where you know straight away, "Oh, I blew that shot," because I kept shooting on film for fun as I got older. You wouldn't know until you got it back from the lab. Dang it, that exposure was off, or oh man, that shot was
Mhm.
shaky, or I blew
Mhm.
focus on that. Digital now, you just go, okay, shoot it again. It's not going to cost me any money. Let's keep rolling.
Yeah. No, again, this is me aging myself. Eckerd's. You would go and we drop it off at Eckerd's, but we also had a Fox's. It's a little photo hut, right? It was a very, very small building, and that's all it did. You just hand it, and you could have it within like an hour. Like they'd have it
Wow.
developed and out. Greatest thing ever.
Wow.
Yeah.
We didn't have those in Australia. I don't think. I wish we did. I
Mhm.
would have dug that.
Yeah. No, it was. Things were so much better in the 80s, early 90s.
They were always better than they are now, Jason. I
Yes.
hate to say it.
Yeah.
Remember that
well-
Family Ties episode? It was so funny. I remember
Mhm.
there was Michael P. Keaton, Alex P. Keaton, played by Michael Fox, was talking to his
Yes.
father, who I think is played by Michael Gross or somebody. And
Mhm.
he was
Yeah.
saying, Michael J. Fox's character was saying, "I wish I lived in the 50s." And Alex's father said to him, Michael J. Fox's father on screen said to him, "The 50s, I think they would have even been a little bit, not conservative enough for you." And he said, "The 1750s.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, pretty funny.
Yes, that's hilarious. Yeah, I'm sorry, I just got off on Eckerd's. I think the last thing I want to hit before we bring up the ad, for the trailer for the Kickstarter, which is live now, is the genetics part at the end. Again, this is 20-year-old technology, so they didn't have what they have now. However, the story that's told there is very standard in this field, which is we couldn't get anything, or it's probably contamination because it's too close to human. And this is a pretty standard story, which is why I'm
It's true.
really looking forward to Legend Meets Science 2, because there's a point where you say, okay, yeah, contamination, maybe, but this is one of those questions I've had for a while, which is if I were to bring somebody just a sample of DNA from, say, Deep East Texas, right? I didn't tell them it was a chimpanzee. Like, say I just said, look, this came from somebody's backyard in Deep East Texas. If they were to do a test, would it come back as, oh, it's probably a human? Or would they say, no, this is from a chimpanzee. Somebody's pet chimp must have gotten loose, right? That's one of those questions I have, is because they do state there isn't sort of a universal test, at least at that time. So it begs the question is, like drugs, like when you test for a drug, if you know what you have to know what you're looking for to find it, right? So if there's a new drug that's been created and they test for it, it won't come up. That's sort of my question is, well, if you don't have like, okay, this is what we're looking for, then you're probably going to find the closest thing to it.
Good
which
point.
begs a lot of questions. Well, does that mean that the reason they keep coming back as contaminated is because their DNA is at least close enough to ours that without hey, this is what you're looking for, that's the result we get?
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable position to take. If there's an assumption that it is something which is leaving samples and it's real, I think that idea, even I always think, well, of course it's going to resemble us to a degree. People are saying lots of reports position these creatures as being far more human than ape-like. Now, there are some which position them more ape-like as well. Like I've read reports where it sounds more like some killer baboon or something. But I've also read plenty where it just seems like a hairy Neanderthal man or something, right? So you can see why there would be a similarity in DNA.
Yeah. And again, but how similar does it even have to be for them to see it? It's like, if you don't know what you're looking for, can you even see it? A great example of this, again, just from a visual thing, I think most of us have experienced this. If you're not familiar with what you're looking at, you don't really properly see it. Sort of the same, if you don't have sort of a way of, oh, that's, we've all looked at pictures like, what? Oh, there's the eye, right? And then you're like, oh, there's the dog, right? You see how you thought it was something else. It's like, oh, it's a dog. Can it be the same way with DNA? If you don't have your starting points to say, okay, this is what we're looking at, might they just go with whatever the closest thing is, since there isn't that one shape, sort of metaphorically speaking, to put it into focus? Again, I'm not a geneticist, I don't know, but it's a question that I have. Given the film says, the geneticist in the film says it's probably contamination. Well, is it probably contamination, or is it possibly that you just don't have enough, because there isn't a prime to sort of look and say, oh, here's the thing that puts it into focus? Is the fact this keeps coming up just the fact that maybe it's just close enough to us, looks enough like us, that's what it appears?
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable position to take. Even as somebody who has a more paraphysical position, I think that's a reasonable position to take. Well, maybe we'll come back though, so don't tune out, everybody. I think we probably should think about showing the wonderful trailer for the Kickstarter campaign, because it's exciting. I know when I saw it, it got me excited. I'm like, this looks fantastic.
No, exactly. So let's show this, and we'll talk about it when we get right back, guys.
Okay, I'm going to put it up now.
In the depths of our world's most remote and uncharted forests, an enigma has captivated the hearts and minds of people for generations. Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Yeti. This legendary creature has been known by many names, but its existence remains one of the greatest mysteries of our time. Now we invite you on a thrilling journey into the unknown with Legend Meets Science 2, a groundbreaking documentary that will change everything you thought you knew about Bigfoot. Join us as we uncover never-before-seen strategies and cutting-edge technology that could finally reveal the truth about this elusive creature. Witness exclusive footage captured using innovative camera traps designed specifically for this enigmatic being. But what makes these camera traps so unique? And how will they revolutionize our understanding of Bigfoot? Discover how an ingenious invention, a remote-controlled interactive robot, might change everything we know about this mysterious creature. Explore fascinating theories behind Bigfoot's extraordinary abilities and uncanny ability to evade capture. Could certain individuals hold the key to finally capturing this mysterious creature on film? Delve into cutting-edge research and analysis that could provide vital clues about this enigmatic being. Separate fact from fiction as we examine popular hoaxes and analyze what sets genuine evidence apart. Join experts as they unravel astonishing insights into the true nature of Bigfoot. Will these findings change our perception of this legendary creature forever? From analyzing footprints and dental evidence to exploring Bigfoot's diet, migration patterns, and vocalizations, our groundbreaking documentary will leave you questioning everything you thought was possible. By supporting our groundbreaking documentary film series, Legend Meets Science 2, you'll not only be part of a monumental quest for knowledge, but also receive incredible rewards that will make your experience even more unforgettable. As a token of our immense gratitude, we'll immortalize your name in the credits of our groundbreaking documentary. You'll forever be linked to this epic journey as we explore the enigmatic world of Sasquatch together. Pledge your support now, and you'll receive 3 signed DVDs, Legend Meets Science and Legend Meets Science 2 Part 1 and Part 2. Plus, proudly display 2 stunning signed posters from both films, an eye-catching reminder of your contribution to this extraordinary project. Immerse yourself in captivating stories, fascinating research, and mind-blowing discoveries with our collection of 14 exclusive ebooks. From Sasquatch Central to the Freeman Bigfoot Files, these riveting reads will captivate your imagination and fuel your quest for knowledge. Be the first to get the companion ebook for Legend Meets Science 2, written by anthropologist Dr. Jeff Meldrum. Pledge at this level, and you'll receive build kits for both the Sasquatch Outpost and the Bigfoot Museum. Create a personal tribute to these legendary creatures while showcasing your commitment to uncovering their secrets. Join us for an exciting private Q&A webinar on Untold Radio AM, where we'll discuss the latest findings and answer your burning questions. Plus, enjoy a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to spend 60 minutes one-on-one with documentary producer Doug Hajicek, picking his brain and learning from his vast experience in the field. Show off your love for Sasquatch with an exclusive Legend Meets Science 2 t-shirt and signed hat. Plus, receive an executive producer credit for Legend Meets Science 2, showcasing your dedication to bringing this incredible story to life. This is it, the pinnacle of rewards. Pledge at this level and receive a one-off high-powered custom-built Sasquatch Research electric bike. Pickup only. Then spend a day with Doug Hajicek himself, training on the bike, enjoying lunch together, and embarking on an unforgettable bike ride as you explore the world of Sasquatch like never before. Don't miss out on these amazing rewards. The time to act is now. Pledge your support and help us bring the truth about Sasquatch to light. Meet Doug Hajicek, the visionary filmmaker who has captivated audiences with his groundbreaking work in wildlife research and cryptozoology. With over 270 TV features to his name, including the hit series MonsterQuest on the History Channel, Doug is a respected industry leader, credentialed technologist, camera systems inventor, and wildlife researcher. Doug has documented never-before-seen behaviors in animals such as black bears, beavers, fish, and invertebrates. His team even captured the first-ever footage of a free-swimming true giant squid in its natural environment for the History Channel. But Doug's true passion lies in unraveling the mystery of Bigfoot. With decades of experience researching both known animals and yet-to-be-proven cryptids, he is uniquely positioned to deliver a captivating documentary that explores this enigmatic world. Introducing Scott Hoffman, an award-winning cameraman with an unyielding passion for capturing the extraordinary. Having traversed through 38 countries in search of breathtaking footage, Scott brings unparalleled expertise to this project. Armed with state-of-the-art 6K and 8K red digital cinema cameras and an extensive array of camera movement tools, Scott is ready to capture unprecedented footage that will leave audiences speechless. Together, Doug Hajicek and Scott Hoffman form an unstoppable team, a perfect blend of passion, expertise, and technological prowess. They are more than qualified to bring this ultimate Bigfoot documentary to life, but they need your help. Support their Kickstarter campaign today and join them on this extraordinary journey as they uncover the truth about Bigfoot. Are you ready for the adventure of a lifetime?
Man, I'm excited by that. I want to go pledge that perk so I can go bike riding with Doug.
That's what I'm saying. Lunch and a bike ride? Does it get any better than that? Dude, there's a robot Sasquatch. I want a robot Sasquatch.
Yeah, no. I'll tell you what, those perks, though, I've been involved in Kickstarters. I've ran an Indiegogo. I've pledged to various Kickstarters. The perks in this are second to none. They're phenomenal. Yeah. It's not like you're just helping what's obviously going to be a really important documentary get made and possibly crack the Bigfoot mystery once and for all. Is that you get to actually get really cool swag. Like the stuff on offer there is amazing. Yeah,
exactly. It's like lunch and bike riding with, honestly, I got you. My wife. I need to talk to my wife about that one. But yeah, I mean, the swag's amazing. But at the end of the day, I go back to what Doug said or Dean said at the beginning. If you are a researcher, if you're into Bigfoot, if this is something that you really want to see brought into the scientific mainstream, if there's anyone who can convince there you are, this man over here about a physical Bigfoot, it's going to be Doug Hajicek, and you get to be a part of it. You're not just going to be just some person out there. You're going to be able to say, hey, I was an executive producer on this. I helped bring this into the world and get this out there. And it does feel like perhaps this is the time. We've got the right technology. And you know what? A lot of what kept these things out of the mainstream, the barriers that have been put up by mainstream media are kind of going away. This show, this channel, is a testament to the fact that they can't hide that. They can't hide the truth of this stuff anymore.
Yeah. And I like your point. I think if anybody wants to spit in my eye, finance this documentary to prove once and for all that these things are physical.
There you go. Yes. Spite Dr. Dean. Spite Dr. Dean. Fund this thing.
But I'm so excited because I love MonsterQuest. To see anything produced by Doug at this level, it's just a thrill for me. And I know that my daughter's going to love this movie. She loved that we watched Sasquatch Legend Meets Science together the other day. She loved that because she's such a MonsterQuest fan. So any additional material, do it for my daughter. Do it so my little one can watch and enjoy another Doug Hajicek show. She's seen every MonsterQuest episode multiple times. So give us some fresh content.
Yeah, for the children.
There you go. No, but it's super exciting. And yeah, people should go and just buy yourself a t-shirt. It's just like going and buying yourself a cool t-shirt or a Bigfoot book. You do that anyway, right? If you're in this space, I know I've got Bigfoot t-shirts and I don't even think it's physical, but I have them. I have I'm serious.
I know you are. I've seen
me wear. Yeah.
Yeah.
So go get yourself a cool t-shirt or a cool book or not to get on board. And I don't plug Kickstarters often and Indiegogos often. I have in the past, like maybe half a dozen ones I've really believed in, and I believe in this one. So get on board.
No, absolutely. We need to thank Doug Hajicek for coming on earlier to speak. And again, if you were here and you listened to that, you heard what he said, folks. Again, this is going to be big. So thank you, Doug, for coming on and talking. Dr. Dean, thank you for putting up with me.
It's always a pleasure, Jason.
As soon as you said what we were going to talk about this week when we were planning this, I was like, oh, I'm going to have so much fun.
Fun at my expense, Jason.
Yes. What you only hurt the ones you love.
True. It's true. We have a nice dynamic like that. You give me you punch me in the head and I just take it. Thank you, Jake. Thank you, sir. Can I have another?
Yeah, and the answer is always yes. On that note, thank you for listening again, guys. If you can, even if it's just a few shekels, throw it that way. Be a part of this. It's going to change. This is probably going to change the entire genre and in this entire field. It really will. We really appreciate y'all coming by. Y'all are why we do this. Y'all are the best. Y'all are just the best people on the internet, as far as I'm concerned. And we'll see you next week. It's going to be another good one, and we'll catch you behind the card catalog. Good night, everybody.